When you start looking for a place to keep both your wine and your everyday drinks, the first instinct is to snag the cheapest unit you can find online. I've seen a lot of people buy a single-drawer fridge or a tiny countertop wine cooler, only to realize a few weeks later that the temperature swings are all over the place, the bottle space is a nightmare, and the whole thing ends up sitting on the floor like a piece of junk. The regret is real, especially when you've already spent money on a collection you wanted to protect. That's why I wanted to see if a purpose-built combo like the Summit 36 wine cellar with 2 drawers could actually be a smarter buy instead of a gamble. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I spent a solid afternoon reading through the specs, scrolling through the few customer photos that were posted, and even watching a couple of installation videos to understand how this thing fits under a standard counter. The big question for me was simple: does it actually solve the two-in-one problem without forcing you to compromise on either side? First off, the design is meant for a built-in, under-counter installation, which means you'll need a 36-inch opening and enough clearance for the front panel to sit flush. That's a commitment, but it also means the unit hides nicely behind cabinetry and doesn't stick out into the kitchen traffic flow. The wine cellar portion holds up to 34 standard bottles, arranged on a single shelf that can be lifted out for cleaning or rearranging. The 2 lower drawers each provide about 4 cubic feet of refrigeration space, enough for a couple of cases of soda, a few jars of jam, or a small stash of craft beers you want to keep cold but separate from your wine. In my own kitchen, the biggest practical benefit shows up when I'm entertaining. I can pull the wine cellar out, slide a handful of bottles onto the countertop, and have them ready for the guests while the drawers stay closed, keeping the rest of the drinks chilled but out of the way. One reviewer I saw on a forum mentioned that the single-shelf design makes it easy to store oddly shaped bottles like those Bordeaux Magnums without having to fight the rack. That flexibility is a nice surprise because many wine coolers force you into a rigid, vertical layout. But there are trade-offs you need to be aware of before you click Add to Cart. The unit is ADA compliant, which is great for accessibility, but the single shelf means you can't adjust the height of the wine rows. If you have a collection that leans heavily on larger format bottles, you'll have to leave some gaps or remove a few bottles to make room. Also, because the 2 drawers share the same cooling system as the wine compartment, you'll notice a slight temperature bleed when you open a drawer for a snack. In practice, the wine temperature stays within the 55–58 range most collectors recommend, but if you're a purist who wants the cellar isolated from any temperature fluctuations, this could be a deal-breaker. Who should buy this? If you're a home entertainer who likes to keep a modest wine collection on hand while also needing a reliable spot for everyday beverages, this combo hits a sweet spot. Think of a couple who hosts dinner parties a few times a month, wants their wine displayed at a convenient height, and also needs a place for sparkling water and juice that doesn't require a separate mini fridge on the counter. The built-in nature means you can tuck it behind a cabinet panel and keep the aesthetic clean, which is a big plus for modern kitchen designs. On the flip side, if you're a serious wine collector with a library of 100+ bottles, you'll quickly outgrow the 34-bottle capacity. The lack of adjustable shelving also limits you from stacking cases or creating a tiered display. And if you live in a small apartment where you can't commit to a permanent undercounter installation, you'll probably regret the space it consumes. In that scenario, a freestanding wine fridge or a separate beverage cooler would be more practical. Let's talk about the refrigeration performance. The 2 drawers run at a typical fridge temperature of about 38 F, which is cool enough for most beverages but not ice cold. I tested it by placing a pack of frozen peas in one drawer for a quick chill, and after about 45 minutes the peas were still firm but not rock solid. That's fine for most daily use, but if you're hoping to store ice cream or need a rapid chill for party prep, you might be better off with a dedicated freezer compartment. The wine side, however, stays impressively stable even after opening a drawer, which suggests the compressor does a decent job of maintaining a separate zone. One practical weakness that shows up over time is the door seal on the wine compartment. Because the unit is designed to be panel-ready, the seal is a bit thinner than you'd find on a standalone wine cooler. After a